So if you're here, you've just witnessed the opening cutscene to Lamplighters League, which, yeah, all the introduction you really need for this title. It's got that very interesting, adventure-esque late 90s, late 80s, early 90s action adventure movie kind of feeling. I think everybody is leaning into that Indiana Jones aspect, but it's kind of cool, a world unknown and the things that might be out there in order to help. Very interesting. But in keeping with dropping you in there with absolutely no explanation, we're just going to continue on. So it's about four or so missions into the game, and the first major boss mission approaches, and I'm really now beginning to realize this is an XCOM style tactical game with heavy top-down strategy, kind of like an early Metal Gear, but I've made absolutely no effort to recruit a healer. Well, yeah. So I mean, I'm already known for making bad decisions in games anyway, if you've seen some of my streams, but from here, a beautifully drawn animation, hand-drawn, whisked me into the skies to read a short briefing that I'm sure to be done reading just before the impressively quick load time is done. And sure enough, in this mission we're off to hunt a missing keystone, one of four pieces in fact of the long fallen mighty Tower of Babel. And it kind of exists in this universe, so I'll fill you in on that later. But the story from here is furnished well with familiar concepts, and so far it's unfolding just quickly enough to draw the interest. Imagine if you'd never seen an early Indiana Jones movie, and having had the story relayed to you, were imagining a grandiose quest for a piece of living legend, and you've got Lamplighters League. Right down to the post-war era, though we swap out World War II for World War I, as is suggested by some of the many varied and well thought out voice lines used in combat. This leads to one of the brilliant things brought about in Lamplighters League. The strength of this game really does lie in its reactions to you and your moves, in more than just the gameplay mechanics. The gameplay utilizes the dual aspects of real-time sneaking and infiltration and turn-based combat upon discovery. You can choose to go loud and have a shootout, or go quiet and infiltrate first, at the risk of opening up one of your squishier operators to a sustained period of damage before their backup arrives during turn-based combat, which, I mean, it's a given, but it slows down your operational capacity significantly. More interestingly, though, these decisions actually matter. Unlike XCOM, where permadeath is just on the horizon, Lamplighters League gives you ample opportunities to get your fighters up and at 'em, with sweet and motivational voice lines to match. However, fail to get them in time, or revive them too many times in a mission, and they'll be out for good, or until you get a healer for your home base. Yeah, I learned that one the hard way. Going down and being revived also carries consequences that will last until heroically overcoming the negative perk associated with the experience, or completing missions until faith in self is restored, with a nice nod to mental health. Brilliant. To return and really highlight the voice lines, though, they really do flesh out the background of all your characters, who are introduced with the ever-likable gentleman Jin Latif, who is amazingly, in a bit of manifest destiny / nominative determinism, a thief, amongst his other likable traits. We also meet Ingrid, an excellent character in her own right. She leads from the front, takes no nonsense, and follows Tifa from Final Fantasy VII's righteous example by literally kicking the ever-loving stuffing out of everyone. I really enjoy seeing a female lead who carries the team in a literal sense. Score one for the leaderboard up there with Beatrix LeBeau from Slam Rancher, Lara Croft, Liara the Shadow Broker, all excellent, and I hope we continue to do this. They also serve to bring weight to the combat, as turn-based combat is usually a circular series of your move, attack, your bonus action, their turn, their attack, etc. from a strategy game. However, it's punctuated by character responses to both your choices and their performance in combat. If they miss an attack, they may be teased by other characters. Don't chuckle for too long, however, as soon after the weighty decisions of XCOM fame begin to kick in. By the fifth mission, and not to give too much away, you've already made several pertinent staffing choices right out of this tutorial, some of which I had begun to question their permanence until realizing my new team was stealthy as all hell and could now execute two-pronged infiltrations, and whilst under the cover of night could perform stealthy assassinations that stuck up on the opposition, making their fields of vision smaller and slowly dwindling the opposition force before picking a position and setting the character to Overwatch when their abilities for use outside of combat ran out. That's interesting actually, because each character is then limited as to how many times they can use their special ability, which is usually an area of effect attack, a bull rush, or a single target assassination you have to sneak up for. The fun part about this is it adds a heavy tactical aspect to the combat outside of turn-based combat, forcing you to utilize every one of your team members. You can't rely on one of them completely from start to the end, and each character comes with a specialization skill. Usually a grenade or a sneak attack one-hit KO, but the bull rush is interesting because it moves you from A to B whilst taking out enemies. If done well, you can finish combat before it starts by sneaking around and taking care of business before being noticed, which is wonderful. There are also refreshment points halfway through the mission designed to sort of get your characters back up to speed, but usually only enough for your two main characters. And whilst I desperately want to finish this report, the next mission is kind of calling my name, and they're made in such bite-sized chunks it won't be long before I'm back to finish this writing. Alright, update. I'm halfway through the mission. It's been executed perfectly. Flanking hit and runs of my dual sneaky folks are going off like a charm. And then suddenly, and I cannot overstate this enough, it all goes really Indiana Jones, to the surprise of the character I'd been utilizing. They respond the only way possible when faced with a crypt terror unleashed by mankind digging too deep, and pulls off a remarkably stone-faced rendition of their surprise, which made me chuckle. As the fanfare fades on the mission, I'm left with a great sense of purpose consummate with the difficulty. We're leaving with the keystone, but a couple of last-minute boneheaded decisions means one of my characters suffered a stress break. This wonderful addition to the game means that they are now going to be dealt a card by the hand of fate that is non-beneficial and tough to get rid of, adding a frisson of frustration to what is already a tough title. If you want to see the charms of this title, you should stick with it until Mission 5, Week 5, which will begin the game anew. Mortal danger has significantly large consequences and requires special medicine to heal. If, like me, you don't have a medic to hand or a specialist to help, you'll now find it harder when not perfecting missions. Okay, you've heard it before, you've heard it again. This is your last chance to cut off if you're, not interested in hearing any of the spoilers that come sort of with the later game. So, from here on out, you've been warned, yeah? I think one of the key things about this game is that your storytelling and how the game unfolds to you and explains the characters is based around the characters accrued, which is wonderful. Each of the characters has a very complicated backstory, but this game leans into the aspect of community-based healing, or social healing, to really unravel. Each character has a counterpart that's key to unraveling how those characters came to be here. Eddie's a gruff type that originally alludes to a heart of gold before realizing that, he's actually punishing himself for his past and other people when they get too close. His spininess kind of comes into play and he pushes them away. The joy of this is that, like the romance in Baldur's Gate, it's going to take effort to work out. And in my instances, I tried to find out what happened to make Eddie a bit of a prickly character, and it was as simple as recruiting Celestine, exhausting the base convos with the three main characters that you start with. Then you have to let Eddie get pensive, kind of think a bit. He was really injured when this happened and close to death. I don't know if that makes a difference in the play or anything. But at that point, he'll ask Celestine for a seance, where she'll explain her talents lie in actually changing people's minds in an interesting allegory for propaganda. So when he was at war, his sister died from influenza, and he can't find her grave, but explains that she was the last and best of his line. So he's kind of racked with this guilt of not being able to be there, not being able to help, and then also not being able to pay his respects. So Celestine explains at that point all she can do is offer him a warm memory of the funeral or wipe his mind of her entirely as if she never existed. And, maybe you can hear it in my voice. It's not just sad, it spins the woe is me attitude on its head and makes him at least more understandable, if not likable as a character. Now, a little further down the line, and again, with relationship to Sawyer, he tells Latif that when he's asked what Bellow Wood means, or Below Wood means, he tells him it's in fact Bellow Wood, the battle that he ran from before getting lost and trapped behind enemy lines. He then called out German forces to surrender, and then held out the battle in a barn with a larger number of people having surrendered, but he earned a medal for it. But as he explains, it's technically a medal for desertion. He asks if Latif is going to tell people, and he replies that he has no time because he's busy telling his own story. But it kind of speaks to the kindness of heart that Latif has, and the unexpected nature of that from Sawyer. It turns out Sawyer would prefer the story be lost to memory as he was trying to flee, and in an interesting nod to history, his situation may not be real, but this is a real battle that actually occurred in history. So there you go, history buffs. And whilst I wasn't able to execute the full story of other characters in time, in order to build the relationship with Danny, you got to recruit the Alexandrite, who is one of the most amazing creatures in the game. It's a source of massive knowledge and lore material if you're interested in that. They will talk him through the ideas of creating a perpetual flame, which has been his lifelong goal. And an oracle or a prophecy once told him he's going to need help or something along those lines. But a really beautiful aspect of coming together and seeking understanding in the strangest of places. But yeah, through pieces like this, the game has come to show me that one key aspect of storytelling is telling people a story they want to hear. And whilst there are many ways to go about doing that, the Souls types unravel slowly and murkily, and they're open to observations and spark arguments about the tale. Bloodborne hits you like a steam train at the 100-hour mark as you unravel the reality and truth of the matter of the church, all while a sort of communitarian story emerges in the background that we all understand to be the one, so thank you, Vati Video, for that. But what these stories share kind of with Lamplighters League is the fact that you have to really work in order to figure them out, similar to some of the other titles I've already highlighted as well. They fight back and they really defy the expectations at each turn, spinning what you think you know of the story that you have in front of you. Eddie Sawyer is not an action hero, and he's haunted daily by his past and his revelations of normality post-war. Panina the Sniper laughs off all but the most serious events, similarly to Latif, but when he goes down, he cried about dying like a street orphan in Cairo, and again, recent events maybe, but it had me rushing to help him up first when he was downed, even though it wasn't technically the right thing to do. The story is non-linear and requires osmosis of base facts and short snippets of cutscenes between missions. Much like a military campaign itself, the campaign is arduous and the fleeting moments of kindness are all the sweeter for it. But at its core, the desire to learn more about the characters pushes you through the ever more difficult missions and builds reasoning for you not wanting your favourite kind of people to pass in the field. I was forced to call it quits in the Hall of Conquest late in the game is because using Latif's distraction special abilities seemed to brick the AI, and one of the enemies prevented me from getting any further by just getting locked on their turn. Um, yeah, other than that though, I played it once again, like Liza P, when it was brand new, and I think since then there would have been a ton of patches, and I want to go back and finish it. I think I will with New Year and all that. Maybe I'll do it on a stream, and we'll all get to have a laugh at it. Anyway, this will appeal to you if you like the early Indiana Jones titles. If you like big concepts, saving the world, the few against the mighty, the fellowship sort of feeling. If you enjoy contextual voice lines and the well thought out characters, this has a ton of them. They're really brought to life by really, really brilliant acting. If you like shows like Company of Heroes or The Founder of the SAS, it's got that like very small ideas growing into something incredible in history, historic, which is quite wonderful. But if you enjoy the small scale special operations, again, similarly to that kind of show, the Winter Base in Modern Warfare 2, and bite sized games, this is a commute title. When you're going home or going to work, you could play it on a Switch or you're streaming it from your Xbox, something like that. And I think that that's where streaming games has really come into its own. It's a small title and really quite wonderful. But as with everything, avoid it if you didn't like XCOM style drawback based gameplay. So like if you play poorly and you're not doing well, you will be dealt sort of stress breaks, these hands of fate cards that are not beneficial to you, and eventually you'll have to either work through them or pay them off. Very similarly to XCOM, your characters will be wounded if you take them on missions. They suffer drawbacks. If you prefer your turn-based and real-time strategy games separate, that's another one. It may not appeal, but if you're trying to get into that kind of angle, you're trying to figure out strategy games and see where you can intertwine them with things that you like, it will be an interesting experience, I think. But if you struggle without a hub world to explore in 3D and the big quest icons over people's heads in order to try and figure out conversations, yes, the exposition in this comes up, but you also had to click on people and individually explore stories throughout the story in order to get the most of it. So there. That's it. I enjoyed Lamplighter League. I think you guys will too. But do let me know. Drop it in the comments. Let me know if there's games that you think I would enjoy. And, it's a new year. So I hope everyone is doing well. Stay safe, alright?